finish the series with this video, and there's a few things that I want to do just for finishing touches that we can start with. The first of which is that when we go to an individual launch, we're not actually displaying the mission patch or any of the other information, so we should probably do that. And we're going to make a component called the page header.tsx. Now I want to reuse this for not just this page, but also the user profile page. So I'm going to create an interface for props that's a little generic. And all it is going to take in a subtitle, string, and alt. And then the main title is just going to be the children itself. And what I'm thinking is having it side by side. So the image on one side and all the text on the other side. So that'll be the title. And a subtitle if it's supplied. I'm also making it so the subtitle is optional. So this is something that we have to do. And then we're going to need to add CSS classes to each of these elements. Now I'm using the bracket notation here so that we can use hyphens, and that'll be more idiomatic CSS classes. And lastly, let's make sure that we don't forget to add the source and alt to our image. And before we add the CSS classes, let's make sure that we add the export to our index.ts file. The header and footer doesn't need to be exported here because they're already being included in the main layout component. And now in the module, or the CSS module, let's find some empty space so we could add the classes that we created. And I'm going to abuse flexbox here because it just makes positioning things so much easier. So we'll use align items and justify content to just center everything. And then for the image, we'll make sure that we have an exact height, and then add some spacing. And then here we're doing a border radius of 50%. That's just to make it into a circle. So all the overflowing parts of the image is hidden, and it just has a nice little circular avatar look to it. Now title and subtitle, we're not doing anything too special. We're making sure that they're all text aligned right, and then subtitle is going to have a good amount of spacing in between so it doesn't look too off. We're also here relying on the default styles of the H2 and 5 that we're using, which we've already done in the global styles. And with that, we can start using the page header, and the first place we wanted to use it was in the individual launch, so id.tsx, and it's going to wrap around launch details, so I'm going to surround this by parentheses and React fragments so we can add the page header right above it. Now we want the title to be the mission name, so that'll be data.launch.mission.name. We can also reuse that for the image alt, and then for the image source we'll use the mission patch. And with that, let's take a look at how that should look. So this is incorrect, and I wonder why. Let's make a console log here of the data and find out what's wrong with the mission patch. Let me just refresh. So mission patch is null, and that's, I believe that has to do with how we're setting in the variables, because it needs a size property, which we'll use patch size.large. And that should fix it. So I can get rid of this console log now. And there we go. So there's our mission patch. We have the mission name. So our launch details page is looking a little better. Let's also use this page header on our profile page. And for that, we need to sign in. And this is the profile page. So let's just add it up here. And we'll do the same thing. We're going to surround the user list with React fragments. So then we could add in our page header. And this time the title is just going to be my trips. The subtitle is going to be the email, and then image source and alt here, we're going to hard code. It's going to be one of the assets inside of public, so public images, and it's going to be one of these dogs. So let's just go with dog1 dot, what is this, PNG? And the alt could just be space dog. Or actually, it would make more sense to call this user avatar. And that should look like this. So we have the little my trips thing, which is specifically for our profile. And then we also have the user that's logged in, which right now is Kelvin@mail. And we have this nice little space dog. Now next we need to make a cart page, because currently it doesn't exist, so we'll just get a 404. But before we do that, we need to create a context so we can handle state management for just the cart. And it makes sense why we're doing it client side, because a cart is ephemeral, so it wouldn't really make sense to write it to the database. So to do that, we're gonna close the client because we're going to add the context into the next library, which is over here. And this file is just going to be cart.ts. You can also call it context.ts, but that really is up to you. And before I forget, I'm going to make sure that I export everything from that cart file, which right now it's going to complain because nothing's being exported yet. So we need to fill out this file. So first we need to grab create context and use context from React. And we're going to create a cart context first. Right now it'll be an empty array. We'll define the typing in a little bit just because it's one of those more complex types. Now the context is going to be private because we're going to create a custom hook using use context, and that'll make things easier to work with. Now we also need to create a provider to use that context, which means we need to change this from a TypeScript file to a TSX file, or else we can't write JSX inside this file. Now following the provider syntax, it'll be cart context dot provider, being the main cart provider itself. But we also need to provide a value here. And this value is going to be whatever is actually held inside of this array. And what I want to send into the value is both cart and set cart that we get from use state. And if we want to be helpful for ourselves in the future, we're going to define the type of use state here to be a launch array. Okay, so this is where we're going to need the cart context type. So we'll do a hover here, and this, you can highlight this, is going to be the type of the context value. That's where you could open up this generic and paste that in. And we're going to have to fix this empty array to be first an empty array and null right now for the dispatch. And once that's done, this typing is satisfied. And then finally, we're going to create a custom hook here called use cart. And we'll start off by grabbing the cart and set cart from the context. And the first thing that we want to give or return is the cart itself. Now the next three things that we want to provide is functions that have to do with setting the cart. We only want to be able to add and remove from cart, and it's going to have additional logic besides just setting the cart. And I also want to do a reset cart, so we could send in an empty array and just empty out the cart array. So let's make sure that we add that as well. Reset cart, and let's define these functions. So first, we want to try isInCart. And for equality, dealing with an array of IDs or a single value is much easier than doing equality on the entire launch object. So here, I'll just see if any of the IDs match, and then we'll just return the Boolean value from includes. Next, we're going to do add to cart, and we're only going to add to a cart if the new launch is not already inside the current array. But if it's not already in, we could spread out the rest of the cart and then add it to the end like this. And now remove from cart. I'm just going to use a filter on the launch ID. So what's being returned here is just going to be the array without the launch that we provide. So that's everything we need for our custom use cart hook. We now need to go back into our app.tsx, which is inside of pages. And since this cart context is only going to be valuable on the client side, I think it's okay to just add it inside of the Apollo provider. And I believe that's all we really need for now. And with that, we could create a cart page, tsx, export cons, cart, return div. So we're definitely going to need the cart state in this page. And this div is actually supposed to be the layouts with the title of cart. Oh, one last thing. We need access to the me query and the router. And that's because we can't, or we're not supposed to be able to access the page if we're not logged in. So we'll add a check here that says that if you're not logged in, we're going to send you to the login page. We'll also need the loader for, oh man, I don't like that. There, that's a little better. All right, well, bear with me. The formatting will get better. But we'll add the loader to make sure that when it's loading, this page has something being displayed. And to display all the launches, we're just going to use or reuse the user list. But instead of providing the data.me.trips property here, we're going to just send in the cart. And then to round out the page, we could also do the mutation of booking all the carts or all the launches that are currently in the cart. And we could trigger that with the onClick. The only thing is we need to actually make sure that we use or we create a click handler. And this is going to need two things. So back to the top. In addition to the myTrips query, we're going to use the book trips mutation. So let's just grab the book trips from the mutation hook. And we also want the reset cart here. Because it makes sense that after we book all the trips, we're going to want the cart to just empty out and be a empty array once again. Now book trips takes in some variables, and I believe it's just called IDs. So we need to extract all the IDs from all the cart launches. That we could do by doing a map and returning just the IDs. And with all of that, we can send in that function into the click handler, and I believe that's all we need to do. So I'll hit save this. Now we could preview this page in the browser, but it wouldn't make any sense because currently we have no way to add to the cart, and we need to update our launches to do so. For that, we're gonna need to go back to the ID page, and we just need to make sure that we're getting that same use cart hook and make use of it here. So let's go into the components, and I don't think it really matters where we put it. So I'm just gonna put it here. Now we want not only add to cart and remove cart, but we also want is in cart. And that's gonna be so that we can make another ternary here based on whether or not the current launch is in or not in the cart. In both cases, we're gonna render a button just with different text on it. And this ternary also determines which function that we're gonna invoke. So either add to cart or remove from cart. And now we could take a look at the browser, which has an internal server error because use cart is not exported. What? Should be. Carts, export const use cart, indexed. Oh, maybe we have to restart the server because we added a new thing into our library. Although I don't know why that would make a difference. I guess it made a difference. Okay, anyways, now we can check out the cart, which is currently empty. I kind of want the page header here too, so I'll add that in a little bit. But if we go to our profile and click on one of the carts here, we have a add to cart and remove from cart. So if we add this to the cart and then check out the cart, we have this one here, which is good. And then let's say we go to a different one where, like this, and we could add this one to the cart as well. And now the cart will have two things. And now we can try the book trips mutation. The reset works, but let's see if it actually adds to our profile. And it did not. Okay, so that's two things we need to check. All right, first let's do the easy thing, and I'm gonna grab the page header from profile and just paste it into the cart page. And here the title could just be cart. And for handle book trips, I think this just needs to be async, so we need to do an await on book trips first. And let's see if that changes things. So let's add some stuff to the cart. And try a book now. Profile. Oh wait, do we need to update the cache? That might be it. If I do a refresh. Yeah, so the mutation works, it's just we need to update the cache. And I believe I could do that here by doing a refetch queries. And we just want to do the my trips documents. Okay, so that's the syntax. It's an array of objects with property query, and inside the property, it's the GraphQL document. So that should fix that. So let's try adding more stuff. So one, Tycom, and try this one. All right, that will give us 3 in the cart. And if we do a book trips here, we should have an updated profile with all the new stuff, so that's good. UX wise, I also kind of want the thing to redirect us after we do the booking. So after we reset the cart, let's also do router.push to /profile, and that will be better for just user experience, I think. All right, the last feature that we need to do is to cancel trips. And for that, we're gonna go make another new operation in the GraphQL schemas. So I've opened up launch.graphql, and we want something similar to get launch. So I'll just copy that and paste it here. But in addition to just the launch, we want and me, so that we can also get the me query, which we can reuse the fragment of user result. But this is important because we need to know whether if we're logged in or not, so that we can access the is booked property of a launch, which we left out on all the other queries. So this one is going to be special. It's also necessary to know if we could even cancel the current trip. Now, if you remember, we get a bunch of errors when we try to get is booked if we're not logged in. But luckily, we still get the data back. So if we close out this errors thing, we still get all the data. Is booked is just null. So client side, it it won't blow up, or at least I don't think so. And that's what we're gonna find out. But now that we added a new query, we need to generate all the hooks and stuff. So we need to do nx run GraphQL generate. And once that's generated, all we really need to do is go into the ID page, and we're gonna swap out the use get launch lazy query for the get launch and me lazy query. So let's replace it here as well. Get launch and me. And ideally nothing changes on the front end. And we can still go to an individual launch. So all the data is still present, but now we have access to two new properties. Now I actually want to edit this ternary to be something else. So maybe like a switch or something. But I want access to all these variables. So I'm going to put it in here so we have access to everything as a closure. And I guess I'll just call it get action button. So it's going to be a closure that we will call get action button. And it's all predicated on the fact that data.me exists. And this is the previous if else statement of whether or not it's in the cart. So we have the remove from cart and add to cart buttons here. But we also need to have a is booked checked. And that's where we can have the button for cancel booking. And for cancel booking, we need the mutation. And we'll put it right here. And we can add it as an on-click button here. And this takes in an object where we need to do variables. And this is data.launch.id. All right, this is inside of its own object. I believe we also need to update, so a couple of refetches. So we want to refetch the user profile, and that's going to be the my trips document. We also want to refetch this launch, so that would be the get launch and me documents. I think that's it. So those two should do it, and this is a big ass on click. But with this little closure done, we could add it to the bottom here and just invoke get action button, and that should do it. Now let's try this out. So we're currently on launch 1, and it says cancel booking because we own this booking, or it's in our trips. Whoa, dude, 400. Why? Which one exactly failed? Errors, variable ID. Variable ID was not provided. Operation name. Oh wait, there's no variables? Why is it empty? Oh, I know what I did wrong. So we need to expand this. So the get launch and me document also takes in a variables attribute or property. And this is where we need to do date or ID equals to data.launch.id. And just to be safe, I'm gonna make this async so that we could await this. I hope that's readable. So let's try this again. So let's go to a launch that we own. So Razik Sat. We can cancel this. And it goes to add to cart because we no longer own it. We can add it to cart, which will add it to the cart page. And then our trips are all here. So the application is done. Yeah. Big full stack application. Anyways, I hope all of you enjoyed this video series of NX Workspace, NextJS as the backend, and GraphQL, and then NextJS as the front end. Kind of like an N stack. In any case, I'll see you all next time.